Without warning, the door burst open like a shotgun blast. Screeched a voice drenched in entitlement. A woman in her 60s, hair tied in a bun, eyes bulging with fury, stormed into my lake cabin, waving a manila folder like it was a court summons. I stood frozen, my coffee mug halfway to my lips. The state attorney general, yes. The attorney general slowly turned her head toward the intruder, disbelief dripping from her face. For a second, time stopped. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Karen stepped forward, pointing a trembling finger. This meeting is unauthorized. You can't host state officials in a private residence without HOA approval. The room erupted. Fear, confusion, disbelief, it all collided at once. The Attorney General, a calm woman with a steel spine, narrowed her eyes. "Who are you?" she asked, her tone unreadable. Karen straightened her shoulders as if she'd just been called. "To testify before Congress, I'm the acting president of the Sunset Pines, Lake Community Homeowners Association, and this is my jurisdiction." I didn't know whether to laugh or hide. Karen wasn't just making a scene. She was walking into a legal disaster with gasoline in both hands. The AG turned to me, her voice low. "Is this normal?" I nodded slowly, ashamed and furious. I had warned the HOA board multiple times to stay out of private business. But Karen had made it personal just 2 days earlier. I'd received threats of fines because my kayak wasn't tied with HOA-approved nautical rope. That's how petty it had gotten. But today was different. This wasn't about ropes or boat stickers. This was about power. And Karen had just crashed headfirst into a hornet's nest of state-level legal scrutiny. Still gripping her folder, she marched forward and slapped a single paper down onto the cabin's coffee table. "Violation notice," she said smugly. "You've built a non-compliant fire pit, and this meeting, whatever it is, violates community zoning." The ag looked down at the paper and laughed. "Lady, do you know who I am?" And Karen blinked. Then it hit her. You could see it in her eyes. Her jaw locked, but her face turned pale. She'd just walked into a cabin housing the state's top legal official, uninvited. Still, Karen didn't back down. That was the thing about her. Had this terrifying ability to double down on crazy. "It doesn't matter who you are. You're in my neighborhood now," she said. The AG stood up slowly, towering over Karen. I had never seen anything like it. The air in the room felt electric. "This neighborhood is part of a statewide lakefront conservation area," she said coldly, "meaning I have oversight. Here, not your HOA." You could hear a pin drop. Karen's lips twitched. She wasn't prepared for this. But she wasn't leaving either. Instead, she did the unthinkable. She pulled out her phone and started recording. "You're all witnesses," she said. "This is an illegal meeting, and I will be filing complaints with county enforcement." She panned the phone around. The room capturing the stunned faces of legal staff, the ag, and me then. Then something even more bizarre happened. She turned to me and smirked. "You always thought you could break the rules," she whispered, loud enough for everyone too. "Here, let's see how far your connections go now." I felt my blood run cold. This wasn't just about an HOA dispute anymore. This was personal. But before I could respond, the AG stepped between us. "Ma'am, if you do not leave this residence immediately, I will be forced to contact state police." Karen's eyes flared with panic, but only for a second. Then she pocketed her phone and hissed, "Fine, but this isn't over." She turned on her heel and stormed out the same way she came in, like a hurricane of ego wrapped in khakis and a badge of unchecked authority. As the door slammed shut behind her, I let out the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. One of the AG's aides immediately reached for his phone. "Should I flag this to the regional office?" he asked. The AG nodded. "Yes. And get me HOA regulations for Sunset Pines. I want every bylaw, every clause. We're about to make an example." My heart pounded in my chest. What I was hearing? For months, I had endured harassment from Karen and her little HOA kingdom. She had fined me for flower beds, threatened to confiscate my jet ski, even once called animal control because my dog barked during quiet hours. But now, things were changing, and fast. But I also knew Karen wouldn't go quietly. Backup people on the board who believed every absurd rule she pushed through. I needed to be ready. Needed to protect myself, my property, and possibly my reputation. Because if Karen was willing to storm into a private meeting with the Attorney General, what would she do next? My phone buzzed. It was a message from my neighbor Josh. "Bro, did Karen just barge into your cabin? We saw her tearing down the path like a SWAT team." I replied, "Yup. Things just exploded. Get inside. Don't answer your door." I knew Karen wouldn't stop with me. She'd already targeted others, people too afraid to speak out. But maybe that was about to change. That night, the AG stayed late, went over county maps, conservation overlays, even HOA charter filings. What we found was alarming. Karen had not only overstepped her authority, she had altered meeting minutes, forced emergency votes without quorum, and issued citations without proper board approval. In short, she had built a little dictatorship. But now, we had proof. I printed everything. We made a plan. We would take it to the State Housing Board, file for a compliance audit, and request emergency oversight of the HOA leadership. And if the evidence held, Karen could be removed. Legally, permanently. The next morning, I woke to the sound of gravel crunching under tires. I peeked out the window. A black SUV rolled into my driveway. My stomach clenched, but then the door opened and out stepped a plainclothes investigator, state badge in hand. Things were moving fast. He introduced himself and explained they were opening a formal review. I nodded. "Be careful," I warned him. "Karen doesn't fight fair," he smiled. "Neither do we." He walked around the property, took pictures, asked questions, then left. But I knew Karen had seen him. I spotted her on the ridge by her fence, binoculars in hand. She was already preparing her next move, and she didn't wait long. That afternoon, I got an official email. "You are hereby notified that a special emergency board meeting will be held to discuss your removal from the HOA. Membership due to hostile behavior." The hostile behavior? I hadn't even spoken to her in weeks, but the trap was set. Karen was trying to expel me from my own property, an illegal action. Sure, but one that could get very messy if I didn't fight back carefully. I forwarded the email to the AG's team. It called within minutes. "Let her try," they said. "We're coming to the meeting." And just like that, the war had begun. 3 folding chairs, 1 unstable podium, and 15 faces, all pretending. This was a normal Tuesday evening, but it wasn't. The HOA meeting had been scheduled in the community boathouse, the one Karen called her headquarters. The lights flickered like a bad horror movie. Karen stood at the front, wearing a smug grin and a red sweater like it was her uniform of war. I walked in with the Attorney General's aide, my lawyer, 2 off-duty officers from the State Housing Enforcement Division. You could feel the tension shift. The board members turned pale. Karen stiffened. "You brought outsiders?" Snapped. My lawyer raised a hand. "We're here to observe. That's within our legal right." Karen's eyes narrowed. The battle had begun. She banged the gavel so hard it cracked the podium. "This emergency session of the Sunset Pines. HOA board is called to order," she barked. Then she turned, slowly, dramatically, as if she were starring in a courtroom drama. Tonight we are voting to remove resident Jason Kepler from the community roster due to repeated hostility, unauthorized legal activity, and endangering the peace of Sunset Pines. My jaw tightened. This was nonsense. But it was calculated. Nonsense. Karen was trying to provoke me, hoping I'd lash out and give her something real to use. I said nothing. Instead, I handed a sealed envelope to my lawyer, who calmly slid it across the table to the board secretary. "That's a CIN desist letter from the state AG's office," he said. "Any attempt to remove Mr. Kepler will be considered an abuse of power and obstruction of state investigation." The room fell silent. Karen's face turned stone white. Could hear someone whisper, "Oh my God," near the back. But still she didn't flinch. "This is our board. You don't own us," she hissed. The aide from the AG's office stepped forward. "Actually, as of this morning, your board is under formal state audit. You're required to halt all disciplinary action until compliance review is completed." That was it. The gloves were off. Karen exploded. "This is a setup. You've been after me since day one," she shouted, pointing directly at me. "Been spying, manipulating, and now you're dragging the government into a private community matter?" I stayed silent. Everyone in the room was watching. Some were scared, some were ashamed. But most were waking up. Finally, the board's treasurer, a quiet man named Lewis, slowly raised his hand. "Karen, is this true? Did you issue citations and schedule this meeting without a board vote?" Karen turned, her fury momentarily frozen. "Don't do this," she warned. But Lewis didn't back down. He pulled out his phone and began reading from the bylaws. "All disciplinary actions must be approved by quorum. There hasn't been one in 3 months. Karen, this meeting is illegal." A ripple spread through the room. People were checking phones, whispering, murmuring. Karen's grip on power was cracking visibly. She reached down, fumbled with her folder, and then slammed it shut. "You're all ungrateful. I kept this place safe. I stopped renters. I cleaned the beach. I removed the graffiti. And this is how you treat me?" Her voice broke for the first time. But no one rushed to defend her. Not this time. Because now people had seen behind the curtain. What they saw scared them. My lawyer stood. "This meeting is over. Any further attempt to penalize my client will result in immediate court action." Karen's face twisted. She lunged for the gavel and threw it. It hit the wall and cracked in two. Then she grabbed. Her purse shouted, "You'll regret this," and stormed out. The silence afterward was suffocating. Finally, Lewis stood. "We need an emergency vote to suspend Karen's authority pending audit results," he said, and one by one hands rose. 12 votes, unanimous. Karen was done. At least officially. But deep down, I knew she wasn't finished. People like her never go quietly. Sure enough, that night I heard tires spinning outside my cabin. When I opened the door, someone had dumped a bucket of dead fish on my welcome mat. My dog was barking like crazy. There were footprints leading. Back toward the woods, heavy, boot-shaped, fresh. I didn't need proof. I knew it was her, but I took photos anyway, sent them to the state investigator. "She's escalating," I texted. Replied almost instantly. "We're filing harassment. Charges, keep all evidence." I looked out at the dark lake, the still trees, the quiet sky, and felt anything but safe. Karen had been stripped of power, but now she was unhinged. And that's when people become dangerous. The next morning, I drove to town for gas and noticed something strange. My face on a flyer. HOA terrorist, it read, with a blown-up photo of me walking my dog. Underneath, "This man is trying to destroy our community with government overreach. Report all suspicious behavior." I ripped it off the pole. Then saw 3 more taped to windows up the street. I was stunned. Karen had launched a full smear campaign. Got back in my truck, heart racing. My phone rang. It was Josh. "Bro, she put flyers in my mailbox too. Said you were a paid informant." I couldn't believe it. Karen wasn't just fighting a legal war. She was trying to turn the entire community against me. I called my lawyer. He was already ahead of me. This is targeted defamation. We'll add it to the injunction. But brace yourself. This woman's unraveling. Later that day, a state investigator came to collect the flyers. He shook his head as he flipped through them. She's toast. She just doesn't know it yet. But I wasn't so sure. Karen had allies. And worse, she had no fear of consequences. That night, she went live on Facebook, claimed she was being hunted by state agents, said I was infiltrating peaceful neighborhoods to push radical agendas. Thousands watched. I couldn't believe it. The comments were split, half supportive, half horrified. The story had gone viral. This wasn't just about my cabin anymore. It had become a firestorm. The next morning, I found a drone hovering outside my kitchen window. I called the sheriff. He arrived within 15 minutes and confirmed it had launched from Karen's property. She was now surveilling my house. "We're pressing stalking charges," he said. "Don't confront her. Let us handle it." But something told me this wouldn't be settled with court papers. That night, the power to my cabin cut out. Line had been slashed, not an outage, not a squirrel. My backup generator kicked in. I checked the security cams. One figure. Hooded. Moving fast. I called the AG's office. They sent a patrol unit to stay overnight. The trooper sat in his SUV, engine humming, parked under the pines. Around 2 a.m., the trooper saw movement. Someone running along the ridge, toward the water. They disappeared before he could catch them, but left behind a footprint in the mud. Heavy, boot-shaped Karen, or someone working for her. At this point, I didn't care. I was done playing defense. The next morning, I filed for a full restraining order. The judge signed it. Karen was officially banned from coming within 200 feet of my property. That should have ended it, but it didn't. Because 3 hours later, she was back. And this time, she wasn't alone. The tires crunched on the gravel with purpose. A black Suburban pulled up slowly, deliberately, like it owned the ground it rolled on. I stepped onto my porch with the trooper beside me. Karen stepped out first in a trench coat, hair tied back, sunglasses on. But what made my blood run cold wasn't her. It was the man who got out behind her. Tall, muscular, military boots, beard like sandpaper. He had that look, the kind that didn't blink before breaking noses. Karen smiled like a villain rehearsing her final scene. "This is my nephew. Former Special Forces, just here for the weekend." The trooper stepped forward. "Ma'am, you're in violation of a restraining order. Leave now." Karen didn't move. Her nephew crossed his arms. "You sure about that?" he asked. His tone wasn't a question. It was a warning. The air got heavy fast. My dog growled low. The trooper kept his hand near his sidearm.
HOA Karen
Reached into her purse slow, deliberate, and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is a countersuit. Filed this morning. We're claiming emotional distress, character defamation, and abuse of power." I didn't even touch it. "Leave it on the ground," I said. She dropped it like it was a threat wrapped in legal paper. Her nephew scanned the cabin, then stared me down like I was a threat. "A lot of government traffic around here lately," he said. "Makes people nervous." The trooper stepped in. "Last warning, you're trespassing. Leave, or I detain you both." Karen scoffed, turned without a word, and got back in the SUV. Her nephew stayed still for 3 seconds longer than necessary, then smiled and walked away. I didn't. Exhale until the vehicle disappeared behind the trees. My phone buzzed seconds later. A message from the AG's office. "We saw her. We're escalating this to the state prosecutor. You're no longer dealing with civil violations. She crossed a felony line." My lawyer called within minutes. "You need full surveillance and security now. She's weaponizing intimidation." "That's not HOA anymore. That's criminal." I nodded, already pulling up the live feed from my trail cameras. But something still didn't sit right. Karen wasn't dumb. Unhinged? Sure, but she always played long games. This felt like bait, like she wanted to provoke a reaction on camera. Luckily, I didn't give her one. But I knew she'd try again. She had something planned. Sure enough, the next morning, every dock in the community had a bright red notice tacked to it. It's unsafe. Closed by order of Sunset Pines HOA. I stood there, stunned. Karen didn't have power anymore. She'd been voted out, removed, legally blocked, but the signs were printed, laminated, and zip-tied, and people were panicking. One family was loading up their kids and leaving early. Another canceled their July 4th barbecue. Karen wasn't. Enforcing rules, she was spreading fear. And fear worked. I took photos of every sign, documented timestamps, locations, even the zip tie types. I emailed it all to the audit investigator. He called me personally. She's impersonating a legal authority. That's criminal impersonation. Keep tracking. Everything. We'll issue a cease and desist to the entire board if necessary. She'd gone rogue. Later that afternoon, Lewis, the treasurer who helped suspend Karen, showed up at my door. He looked shaken. I think she's following me, he said. Last night, I saw a car idling outside my house. Then this morning, my tires were slashed. My stomach dropped. Did you report it? He nodded. Cops said no cameras, no proof. But I know it was her. I believed him. Karen wasn't just trying to punish me. She was targeting anyone who stood in her way. Lewis handed me a flash drive. This has her old emails. Stuff from last year. You'll want to see it. That night I plugged it in. What I found made my skin crawl. Karen had been writing board memos with phrases like eliminate the opposition and neutralize troublemakers. She'd labeled certain residents as flight risks, enemies, even corruption nodes. It was cult-like, deranged. She had built files on people's habits, schedules, even the medications they took, and she had shared them with 3 other board members. My heart pounded. This wasn't just power tripping. This was surveillance, profiling, possible identity theft. I sent the entire archive to the AG's office. Within hours, they replied, "We're preparing an emergency injunction to seize HOA communications and devices. Do not engage. Stay in your cabin." Officers en route. But the cabin didn't feel safe anymore. My windows felt too thin, my locks too weak. I sat with a bat beside me and a flashlight in my lap. Every car that passed, every twig that snapped, I jumped. Around 11:23 p.m., I heard it, scraping. Just outside the sidewall, I crept to the window and flicked on the porch light. Nothing. Then movement behind the shed. I hit the security horn. Lights flooded the yard. My cameras lit up, and there, clear as day, was Karen crawling away in the mud, in full black clothing. She looked directly at the lens. I froze. She had wanted to be seen. Police. Arrived 6 minutes later, she was gone. But they found muddy footprints, a set of bolt cutters, and a USB drive in a Ziploc bag. I handed over everything. The officer said one sentence I won't forget. She's playing psychological warfare. She wants you to break before court even begins. I nodded. But I wasn't breaking. Not now. The next morning, the state issued a full criminal restraining order. They froze the HOA's accounts. All operations were suspended. Karen's access. 2 community systems revoked, her car impounded, her email seized. But still, she wasn't done. That evening, every mailbox in Sunset Pines got a letter. No stamp. Hand-delivered, signed anonymously. Inside each one, a photo of me sitting on my porch. Taken through binoculars, one line was printed on the back. "This is who brought the state to your door." I knew it then. Karen had gone beyond rage, beyond revenge. She was running a full-blown misinformation war, turning neighbors against me, framing me as the villain. But something else clicked in that moment. She wasn't alone. Someone was helping her print, deliver, stalk. Possibly more than one person. The real threat wasn't Karen anymore. It was whatever network she had built behind the scenes. The HOA wasn't just corrupt, it was weaponized, and now I had to figure out how deep it went. Because if someone didn't stop her, Sunset Pines wouldn't be a neighborhood anymore. It would be her kingdom. And I had just become public. Enemy number 1. By sunrise, Sunset Pines didn't feel like a neighborhood anymore. It felt like a battlefield. Everywhere I walked, people glanced sideways. A man watering his lawn stopped mid-spray when he saw me. A woman collecting her mail took a full step back like I was contagious. Karen's letter had done what law, reason, and truth couldn't. It poisoned the community overnight. My inbox was flooded with messages from residents. Some anonymous, some angry. Why did you bring the state into our homes? One read. Another said, we handled our business just fine before outsiders got involved. The worst one came from a father. I used to fish with. My kids don't feel safe here anymore because of you. That one hit like a punch. Karen was winning. Not legally, but socially. And that was far more dangerous. I needed proof, not just of what she'd done, but of who was helping her. So I called Lewis again. He agreed to meet in secret behind the maintenance shed near the east dock. When I got there, he was pacing, holding a folder. This is bigger than I thought, he whispered. Inside were photocopies of financial logs, HOA funds being funneled into something called community enhancement initiatives. Thousands of dollars, moved quietly, unapproved. Karen's been hiring people off the books, Lewis said. Cleaning crews, drone pilots, even private security. All under the radar. My stomach turned. Security? I asked. He nodded. That guy she brought to your cabin? Not her nephew? His ex-contracted enforcement? Got his license revoked in Arizona? No relation to her at all. This was a full operation. Not just paranoia. Not just HOA drama. Karen had built a personal army using HOA money and labeled it enhancement. Lewis also found meeting logs, handwritten, showing names of sympathizers in the community. People Karen thought were loyal, people she could count on. She's been documenting everyone, he said, even me. We both knew what this meant. Karen wasn't acting rogue. She'd built a shadow board, a secret council, one that operated outside the official HOA structure. If we could prove it, everything she'd done could be undone. But there was a problem. The files were incomplete. Half the pages were missing. They were in the office safe, Lewis said. Then they vanished. That night I decided to go to the source, the HOA office. It had been padlocked since the audit. But Lewis still had a key from when he was treasurer. We went after dark. No headlights. The building was dead quiet. Lakeside dust floated in the flashlight beam like ash. We searched drawers, cabinets, filing bins. Nothing. Then Lewis knelt by the floor vent. She used to joke about hiding things down here, he muttered. We pried the grate loose. Inside, wrapped in a plastic bag, was a black flash drive. We plugged it into my laptop right there. Dozens of files appeared. PDFs, audio, even a folder labeled AG Watch. My breath caught. Karen had been tracking the Attorney General's movements, his aides, even photos of license plates from visiting cars. She was spying on state officials. That was federal. I emailed everything to the state office. Within hours, they escalated it. A federal investigator called me directly. Just exposed felony surveillance and potential wire fraud. Stay put. We're coming with a warrant. The next morning, federal agents entered the HOA building officially. Karen wasn't there. But someone had broken in overnight. Papers were shredded. Cameras spray-painted. Even the office server smashed. But the flash drive we'd found had already been uploaded. The evidence was safe. That afternoon, the entire community received a letter, this time from the state. It explained Karen's removal, the audit, the illegal activity, and urged residents to attend an emergency town hall. The meeting was scheduled for Friday night. Everyone was required to attend. Karen was not invited. But she showed up anyway. She arrived 15 minutes late, wearing white, holding a Bible, and she walked right up to the podium like she still owned the place. Gasps echoed across the room. One man stood. "You're not welcome here," he said. Karen smiled faintly. "You can't silence truth," she replied. But before anyone could respond, a federal marshal stepped forward. "Ma'am, step down. You're here in violation of an active investigation." Karen turned slowly, defiant, but stepped down. The town hall began. One by one, officials explained everything. The surveillance, the stolen funds, the false citations. the intimidation, and finally the vote. The state was dissolving the Sunset Pines HOA permanently. The crowd gasped. People whispered. One woman cheered. Karen looked stunned, but she didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just stood there, still as her empire crumbled around her. Then she turned and walked out without a word. You could feel the air shift, like a spell had been broken. The nightmare was over, or so we thought. But I knew better. Karen wasn't the kind of person who lost quietly. The next day, Lewis's house was broken into. No valuables taken, but his laptop gone. My cameras picked up someone loitering at the edge of my property. Again, black hoodie, same boots. And at the town exit, a banner had been hung across the road, spray-painted in red. They betrayed one of their own. Karen might have lost her title, but she still had a message. And she wasn't done sending it. Then came the fire. A shed behind the old boathouse went up in flames. Firefighters found accelerants, arson. Everyone assumed it was Karen, but I wasn't sure anymore. It felt bigger. Coordinated Karen. Had built something, a system. And just because she was gone didn't mean it had vanished. I got a package in the mail that afternoon. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. On it, a map. Sunset Pines, with red X's over specific. Houses mine. Lewis's. The AG's contact. Josh is at the bottom. Phase 2 begins. No name, no signature. Just that, it was never just Karen. It was always a network. And now, without her in control, was splintering into something far more unpredictable. At exactly 2:47 a.m., my security lights flicked on. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear voices. Just the faint click of gravel shifting outside. I looked at the monitor. 3 people, all wearing black hoods, gloves, faces covered. One of them held a metal pipe. Another had a crowbar. They didn't touch the door. They didn't go for windows. They just stood there, staring straight into the camera, not moving, not blinking. Then one of them held up a cardboard sign. For words, handwritten in red ink. She warned you all. They stood for 12 seconds, then turned, walked silently back into the woods, and disappeared. No license plate, no voices, just shadows and silence. I called the authorities. They arrived 20 minutes later, but the camera footage was gone, erased remotely from the cloud. Whoever they were professionals. The next morning, I drove into town to meet Lewis and Josh. We'd agreed to stay in constant contact, keep records of everything. But Lewis never showed. I called twice, texted, no answer. I drove to his place. Front door was open. Inside, chaos. Furniture overturned. Cabinet drawers ripped out. His laptop was gone. His phones, too. A single message had been carved into the kitchen table. Turncoat. Josh swore under his breath. We need to leave, he said. This isn't just HOA politics anymore. These people are organized. I shook my head. We can't back down now. Not after everything Karen did. But even I could feel it. The balance had shifted. Karen was gone. But the people who supported her, they weren't loyal to her. They were loyal to something else. And that something had just gone active. At the sheriff's office, we reported the break-in. But the deputy just glanced at us like we were overreacting. You guys stirred up a hornet's nest, he said. You think these people were just going to take that lying down? Josh leaned in. Are you saying law enforcement's not going to do anything? The deputy shrugged. I'm saying this ain't just about laws anymore. It's about reputation, community. People don't like outsiders shaking the tree. That's when it hit me. Karen hadn't just corrupted the HOA. She'd bought influence. Maybe even at the local level. The people who were supposed to protect us, they were part of it, or at least scared of it. We were on our own. That night, a group chat lit up. One we'd created for concerned residents. But something was off. New names were joining. Names we didn't recognize. And then came the messages. The cabins were never yours. Is Karen's legacy. Keep pushing, and you'll regret it. One message stood out. A photo aerial view of my cabin, timestamped from 20 minutes earlier, taken by drone. They were watching me in real time. I shut the lights, killed Wi-Fi, and disconnected every smart device in the house. The war wasn't digital anymore, it was physical. I texted Josh one word: bunker. We had a fallback location, an old storm shelter behind the church, locked, and wired for emergencies. We met there at midnight, backs against the concrete walls, files spread out under LED lanterns. We laid everything out. Every document, every name, every theory.
Yes.
When Josh showed me something new, a receipt from a private post office box opened under Karen's name, but accessed weekly by someone else. A man named Reese Holloway. We looked him up. No digital footprint, no social media, no tax records. Just one entry. Former contractor for civil property control in an abandoned mining town upstate. Disappeared 2 years ago. Josh leaned back, pale. She didn't just build a shadow board. She built a militia. And that's when we knew this wasn't about HOA revenge. This was about control, influence, fear. Karen had started it. But someone else had taken over. By morning, the entire neighborhood changed. No one waved anymore. People locked there. Mailboxes, porch lights stayed on, even in daylight. A flyer showed up on my windshield, printed, folded, unsigned. You brought them here. You made us targets. This isn't over. Josh's tires were slashed. A dead crow was nailed too. Lewis's front door. No witnesses. No arrests. Just silence. We tried warning others, but no one wanted to talk. It was like the whole town decided fear was safer than facts. Then the fire marshal arrived, not local state. He told us something chilling. There have been 3 suspicious structure fires across neighboring counties, all tied to HOA. Disputes, all unsolved. All post-Karen. I asked him flat out, "You think it's the same people?" He nodded. "It's a pattern now. You weren't just in a feud. We were in the middle of a coordinated campaign. But we had one final move." The files from the flash drive had a list of community addresses labeled Finalization Zone. We mapped them. There were 12. 9 had already received threats. 3 had been attacked, and the last one. My cabin. I wasn't surprised, but I was done playing defense. That night, we set up cameras, hidden, offline, motion-triggered, battery-powered. We slept in shifts. At 3:14 a.m., the first alert went off. Someone had stepped into the kill zone, hooded, same boots. He circled the cabin, tried the door, looked into every window. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a lighter. Before he could strike it, the back floodlight came on, and I stepped out holding a shotgun. I didn't speak. He froze. Hit the alarm button from inside. Sirens blared from fake speakers we'd installed around the cabin, a trick, but it worked. The man bolted into the woods. We gave chase, lost him after a quarter mile, but we found his glove, and inside it a tag. Military surplus. Traceable. We turned it in. And finally, someone took it seriously. The state issued an emergency task force to investigate the rising violence. They raided an abandoned lake house for miles south. What they found inside was worse than we imagined. Maps, tools, HOA documents, surveillance photos of multiple families. One wall covered in red strings and printed faces. At the center, Karen, butt crossed out. And below it, a single word in black ink, U.S. Karen had been the face. But the real threat was leaderless now, and that made them far more dangerous. A hydra with no head. Everyone was a suspect. Everyone was scared. Even the state said, "We don't know how many are involved." But I did know one thing. They weren't finished. They were coming back. For what? I had no idea. But one thing was certain. Sunset Pines wasn't just haunted by Karen's legacy. It was being restructured by something darker, something invisible. And I had just become their next objective.